Hello everyone, I hope each one of you is well and safe. This week is Mental Health Week, Awareness Week, and this theme this year is kindness. Today, in this short video, we're speaking with Jessica Livingstone, founder of Wellbeing Yoga, who will tell us why we should be taking care of our mental well-being, and most importantly, how we can do this while being kind to ourselves. Just before I go on and give the floor to Jessica, I would like to mention that Empiric employees are very, very lucky. There are many reasons, but one of these is because Empiric understand how stressful work can be, especially at these times, so that they have made sure that everyone is able to have 2 well-being sessions per week with Jessica and Wellbeing Yoga to reduce her stress and be able to be more productive and happy. Jessica, thank you very much for offering to give us your insights, tips, and advice for this important topic. Before we move on to the questions I have for you today, please, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, yes. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here and also to be teaching wellbeing meditation sessions with Empiric. I'm really enjoying it. So just a really quick thing about me. I turned 50 this year. I'm a mother of 2, and I trained to be a yoga teacher about 11 years ago now. And that led to me setting up a yoga and meditation studio in Essex, which has been running 8 years. And also I've kind of turned into a bit of a mentor and coach for companies in the city as well. Just all about well-being and mental and emotional health, really. That's definitely my specialism.
Thank you very much, Jessica. That sounds fantastic. So could you please tell us why mental health is important?
I think it's about everything, to be honest with you. I think that in our world, often we get a bit obsessed with intelligence, your IQ, and yet actually it's your EQ, which is your emotional quotient, which is actually the most important thing, I think, because your EQ is all about your mental and emotional health and all about your ability to deal with whatever life throws at you. So if we're not so able to cope with whatever life throws at us, then life becomes much more challenging. And that creates lots of problems. So that then leads to mental health issues. But everybody has mental health and everybody has some form of mental health issue. So I think working in and understanding mental health is really, really critical to us and to our lives in general.
Mm-hmm. This is something that all of us should understand and acknowledge. And please, could you mention a few of the most common health issues, mental health problems?
Yeah, well, I think stress, that's the number one. And we know now that, more people take time off work for stress than anything else. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole host. Some of the more common would be anxiety, obsessive worrying, insomnia, i.e., bad sleep, that's very common. Also addiction issues. I think often people don't realise that addiction issues are actually a mental health issue. Mm. OCD, depression, and depression has lots of different scales, from mild to severe, postnatal depression. There's a lot of it around, and I think the thing that maybe people need to be aware of is that mental health issues are dramatically increasing globally and in the UK, and particularly actually in the last 10 years, which is really worrying. And I think obviously at the moment, it's brilliant we're having Mental Health Awareness Week, because I think a lot of people are struggling right now.
Exactly, I couldn't agree more with that. And this is why we thought to do this video for this week. And thank you so much for contributing to that. So mental health problems, of course, can have a wide range of causes. Could you please just tell us a few of the most significant ones?
Well, in my experience, it's always a culmination of things. It's never just in isolation. The person who drops a cup of tea on the floor and starts to scream, it's not about the cup of tea, it's about all the other things that are going on for them in their lives. And, you know, for example, we might cope really well if, say, our job changes and we're out of work for a while, because that might just be one thing. But say our job changes and we're out of work and then our partner leaves us, that could be the one thing that could then just tip us over into mental health issues. But I think that in general, the way that we lead our lives now is, it really affects our mental health, because so many of us are so busy and we're juggling so many things. And I think there's a real emphasis in the world in general on constantly striving. And I think that then puts a lot of pressure. We put a lot of internal pressure on ourselves. So I think workload, I think if you think about this pandemic at the moment, I think that's very stressful for people, because people feel uncertain. Everything has changed, and people feel frightened. The daily news is very negative at the moment. And if you're watching a lot of that and you're reading a lot of that on social media, then in your mind all the time is this negative concepts and notions. And what the brain does, it's just natural for us, is that we're always searching for problems to solve, because it's primal within us. It's the way that we survive. And so if you think there's lots of problems going on, if you are a little bit anxious anyway as a person, you're going to be continually scanning for these problems to try and solve them. And it's that continual scanning that creates more issues for people. And what happens when we're fearful is we go into a range of coping mechanisms. One of them may be more addictive issues. So we may turn to more alcohol. Some people might turn to more drugs. People might turn to overeating, emotional eating. On the other side of that, seeking to control our environment because we feel out of control, then people move into more anxiety, because that anxiety is a form of control. Or sleeplessness, because we're obsessively worrying, so then the sleep starts to go. So there's a whole host of things, yes, that are happening, really.
Exactly. And all these things you've mentioned end up and show us how significant it is that we take care of our mental health and mental well-being. And we need to be kind to ourselves, we need to be caring to ourselves and consider all these things. And this is what we want to highlight basically this week, that the kindness, we need to be kind to ourselves. So how can we do this? If you can give us some self-care, relaxation or mindfulness tips, advice, I guess you have a lot of these to share.
I think the key thing to think about is certainly the skills that I've learnt. I should all be very doable. I really believe that people need to have tools that they can use that are quite simple and quite practical. And one of the things it might be helpful to understand is sort of what stress does to the body, and then you can understand maybe why we do some of these things. So for example, when you get stressed, adrenaline starts to race around the body, you get more cortisol, which is like the stress hormone. You might find yourself not feeling like you can breathe properly, you're breathing up in the chest, you might have a more dry mouth. You go into what's known as the fight or flight syndrome or state, which is where you're preparing yourself for attack. But of course, you're not actually under attack, but you think you're under attack, and the body thinks it's under attack. So because it goes into that mode, for example, all the blood goes out to the periphery to prepare you to run or to fight, and then that moves away from your digestive system, which is why so many people have issues with their tummies when they get stressed, with their stomachs. You might feel like you need to go to the loo. But over time, if you imagine that you're constantly prepared for attack, the body then gets really worn down. There's constant stresses on the body can make us ill. Eventually, our immune system really decreases, and over longer term, it can have real havoc, create real havoc in the body and really make us quite sick. So one of the things that we can do, really practical things that we can do, is learn how to step out of this fight or flight mode and step into what we call rest and restore. And there's lots of different ways, but I'll give you two examples. One is to learn, and I really think you need to learn with a good teacher personally, but to learn what you could call deep belly breathing. And it's not just simple breathing into the belly. Ideally, you want to try and get it to the count of 6, which is like a slow count of 6, which can be quite hard for people when they first learn, which is why I suggest if you can, try and find yourself a teacher. But as soon as you start to move into lengthening your breath, lengthening the exhale, creating the breath longer so it goes down into the belly, you move into the rest and restore mode, and you move out of fight and flight, and the body starts to restore itself. We literally heal ourselves, and you can do that just by learning that breathing technique. And I would say if you can get yourself up to 5 minutes of that, that is wonderful. But once you've learnt that breath, it's something I do all the time. I'll be doing the dishes, I'll be doing it, I'll be out in the car, I'll be doing it. I do it as part of my meditation practice. It's a really powerful, profound technique. And there's lots of other breathing techniques you can learn as well, but that just gives you one example. So it's all, I'm really pleased that Mental Health Awareness Week have chosen kindness, because kindness is what yogis are, people that do yoga, that's myself. We practice in kindness as one of our practices. We practice being kinder to ourselves. We practice being kinder to others. And we do it because we know, and they've proven this now with science, that your heart really responds, your heart rate responds when you are kind, when you're kinder to others and you're kinder to yourself. Your heart rate literally goes down. So meditation, this is what we've been learning with Empiric. I think people get frightened by that word. They think it's kind of lofty, or they might not be able to do it, or they've learned one way of doing it and they think that's it. There's loads of different ways to meditate. But I would say, if you can find yourself a teacher to teach you a form of meditation, and know that there are different styles before you land on one, and just give yourself that time, even if it's just 10 minutes every day, to start to really settle the body. What happens is the mind starts to settle. You also then start to move into this rest and restore state. And it's incredibly reviving, revitalizing, invigorating. It's got so many benefits. I don't think people realize that actually some of the most successful people on the planet have a daily meditation practice. So it's not just about you being kind to you. It's about the fact that if you want to cope much better and have a happier life, yes, I think everybody should meditate.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, and I want to emphasize that it's been fantastic. It's been incredible. It's been incredible that the fact that here at Empiric we have this how can I say this advantage, this benefit to focus on ourselves just a few minutes per week, per day. It's so important. Just spend some time, some minutes. Being kind to yourself is so super important. And stress can have incredible negative effects on our minds and bodies, and this doesn't help with productivity and doesn't help at all. So it's very important, and thank you so much for sharing all this fantastic information and your tips. That was very, very helpful, and I hope that each one of you who are watching this video right now start being more kind to yourselves, so you can also be kind to others. Thank you so much, Jessica, for these fantastic tips and advice, and thank you everyone for watching, and remember how important your mental well-being is.